For folks that might need help with the chair, I think Councilman DeWitt's back there helping out, so thank you. Taking his service to the next level, but I would like to start this meeting and ask you to all please rise. Councilman DeWitt, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
It would be a pleasure, Mayor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please. And folks, with the crowd please, I'm gonna have to demand that it's quiet though, because it won't work any other way with this many people, so thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Present.
Councilman DeWitt?
Present.
Councilwoman Carr?
Here.
Mayor Simmons?
Here.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Here.
Councilman Gibson?
Here.
Councilman Forbes?
Here.
Arlene, or would you like to, do you want to take public comment, or do we have some opening comments here? We'll start with public comment, okay. Members of the public that would like to speak, please come forward at this time.
And Mayor, if you could just remind everyone, can please
Oh,
make
yes.
sure they fill out their speaker.
And anybody that would like to speak, please, we need to get your information. If you'd please remember to hand out one of these cards here. Thank you so much. Yes, sir, welcome.
Good evening, council members.
And I'm gonna be a bear. It has to be quiet in here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Dan Cox. I'm the attorney for the Bayside Improvement Community Development District and the Bay Creek Community Development District. These two districts collectively provide the stormwater management system maintenance and services for the Pelican Landing community, located between Spring Creek, Coconut Road, west of 41, all the way to the bay. I've been asked to approach you about some concerns that we have about the proposed program. The resolution mentions your mitigation credit program. It's not implemented by this resolution. We don't know for sure what it's going to look like. What we have that I've seen is that for a community association maintained system that there is an eligibility for mitigation credits of 15 to 50%. Now, for bona fide agriculture that has an environmental resource permit and participates in the MPDES program, you have 100% credit. Our system is a little bit unique in that we also have environmental resource permits. We also participate in the MPDES program. Now, we're not bona fide agriculture. We do have some outside the gate impacts, but all of our properties within the gates are served by the system that does not discharge into the City of Bonita Springs system. All of our discharges are ultimately into surface waters of the state. And in fact, we also accept inputs into our system from off-site sources that would be treated by the City of Bonita Springs if they were not coming into our system. So I would encourage you to look at this distinction and perhaps add another layer of mitigation credit in there to recognize these differences, or to either provide a variance process where we could approach you and present the different evidence that we have to show you that we cause no impacts to further reduce or mitigate against the $50 per ERU charge. The way the ordinance is currently written, it says that, our only option is to file a lawsuit in circuit court within 20 days of your adoption of the resolution. Within that 20-day period, you're not even going to have your mitigation program nailed down, hammered out. You're looking at saying, okay, if we have credits for this year, we're going to push them off and we'll apply them to the next year's along with the credits then. But we don't know what the credit system is going to look like. If you adopt this resolution the way it is right now, you're pretty much forcing our hand to have to go to circuit court. We need to get the mitigation program defined. We need to have a reasonable option to present evidence, to have a variance to the full fee, and to define what would be an appropriate credit before we're subject to the imposition of the fee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for being here. And make sure we have your information. Thank you so much. Hi, John. Welcome.
Honorable Mayor, Council, John Payne, Bonita Springs Downtown Alliance, and CGT Kayaks. There's a few things I'd like to speak about. One is that the average income of people in old downtown Bonita Springs is below the average. It's poverty level. Many residents in Bonita Springs are in fixed income. The need for stormwater is undisputable, and we need to act fast. We have a rainy day fund. We're talking about stormwater and flooding. It's raining, folks, so let's use the rainy day fund for exactly what it should be used for. Let's put $1.5 million in it as soon as possible and be able to hit the ground running right now. Why waste time implementing a fee that's not needed and imposing this kind of burden on Bonita residents when we don't need to? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Welcome.
Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is Robert D. Gillarmo, I'm a 30-year resident of the town of Bonita Springs. At my house, I'm an expert on stormwater because I see it flow past my house 24/7, 365. We can implement stormwater management in a lot of different ways. However, time is growing short and we need to expedite the process. In the last 5 years, we had 5 Category 5 or 4 storms in the Atlantic Basin. Now these storms, like Dorian, sat over the Caribbean and just dumped water 24 hours. If that did that to Bonita Springs, where would we be? So I'm saying time is of the essence. I live at 25571 Fairway Dunes Court, which is right next to the old golf course. The storm ditch is 30 feet from my house, and I watch it continuously. It rises and falls. The ditch has grown 4 to 5 feet wider than it was when I moved in there due to the erosion of the ditch. We have water problems going into Cedar Creek and Imperial River because our stormwater flows so slowly. At the beginning of the Imperial River, up around IBE and Quinn Street, you have the channels runs from 20 to 30 to 50 feet in some places, and it meanders and it flows very slowly up there. My daughter lives in Pinecrest. She had 3 feet of water in her house, and she was out of her house for a year. So, you know, this subject is dear to me because she went through a lot of pain, and not only did that happen to her, she got cancer. Now, me and my fellow members of the Fairway Dunes are for the creation of stormwater utility. We think it's a great idea. It opens the town up for funds that may be available to us to help alleviate some of our problems. Of course, there's parts of Bonita that will always flood. So with that process and those areas, we need to either take people out of those areas or they need to raise their homes. So I think whatever we decide on has to be a good common sense approach. It has to be looked at in all different ways and the different angles and taking everybody's opinions into account. But I think, like everybody here, I love Bonita Springs, and I think it's a crown jewel of Southwest Florida. She's been polished off lately, and she's starting to shine. And that's all I have to say. I think we're for it 100%.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon Kingston. I say no to assessments. The city hasn't done anything about this problem for at least 20 years or more. If you're going to go ahead with this program, then all property owners should pay, not just a few select people who live near the rivers and the streams that overflow. And are you charging commercial properties too with the same kind of fee? Is that a yes, you are, or?
No, ma'am, we just make statements. I apologize. It's not a dialogue
Okay.
in this format. Not yet. It will be very,
Okay,
very
well,
soon.
you had a lot of years to collect this runoff, and the flooding has never been from the hurricanes, not at my property, and it floods at my property. It's the runoff from the other counties, from Charlotte County and where they messed with the river. I cleaned that up. And then you also sent a notice about buying people out of these areas. So how are you going to do that? What are you going to give for money? Are you going to offer enough money that they can still stay in Bonita Springs? Or you just want to steal them? My opinion is, whatever money you already have for this problem, you get together with Charlotte County and you combine the two things and fix the problem. It's 20 years already. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for being here. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name's Kevin Marsack. I'm a maintenance supervisor for Leisure Time Park. And that's been there since 1982, from what I understand. I've only been there 3 years. So it's been there a long time. Well, Pelican Landing came next to the west, and they built up. Then Publix came next, and they built up. And then to the east of us, Bubbles Car Wash built up. So we're in a toilet bowl. To make matters worse, we don't even have any storm sewers. There's not one in the park. So all we can do is hope for the best when it rains for the water to eventually recede. So if you're going to do this study, that's fine, but I just hope you're going to take places like that into consideration and maybe help us by putting some storm sewers in. And it is a study, right?
This is public comment, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Robert McGrath, president of Lakes of San Souci. It's at 75 and Terry Street. When Irma hit, the previous city manager came out, FEMA and everybody, and we're up to our waist and water like everywhere in town. I've been working on trying to get some things resolved with the Florida Department of Transportation, the DOT, Water Management, and I think I made a mistake instead of coming to you guys first. I distributed a copy, hopefully you have it, from the DOT, that in 1992 they said it was their responsibility for the Finger Lake along 75, which a lot of water comes off 75 because when you're standing on some of the property, you're looking at the underneath of the cars passing our property. It's been a little over a year, I think, and I haven't had any response from them. The response I got from the engineering department was that was a deal made a long time ago. So I'm giving it over to the city with the intent that it might help save funds from the city to get them to clean that up. It would alleviate a lot from Morton Grove and Citrus Park. I agree with the first speaker. I haven't been to previous meetings, so I'm not too up on this until I got this letter. But we want to know and see if we're getting any response from the city with the documentation I gave all of you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Welcome.
Hi there. My name is Mary Beth Bourree, and I live in Bonita Bay. I just wanted to add to I emailed all of you, and I know a number of my neighbors did, in support of the stormwater utility fee. We are fortunate to live in Bonita Bay, where it's not really an issue because of how the development was engineered. And I would love it if all of Bonita Springs were engineered like Bonita Bay. Maybe we wouldn't have this problem, but that's not the case. And I think it's really important for you to go forward with this. And I think it's very important for places like Bonita Bay that don't have a problem to pay our fair share as citizens of the city of Bonita Springs. And I am surprised that there might be folks I think it was Pelican Landing, the first speaker, who wanted to get some sort of mitigation. I think every single taxpayer in the city of Bonita Springs should pay. It is such a small amount. For most of us, it's a small amount, and I think it's the right way to go. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for being here. No, folks, please, this won't happen. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Welcome.
Mayor, members of the council, my name is Louise Patrick. I don't live in any development. I live on a street, Cartwright Court, in Bonita Springs. And I'm here for several reasons. First of all, I want to compliment you on the website. I happened to go to the website that explained in much detail some of the things that I wanted to ask, because I too did not attend any of the meetings prior to this. I would like to know where the figure 1.7 million came from, because nowhere on the website was there even a ballpark of how you may have determined that $1.7 million is going to be necessary for this venture. I think we would all agree in Bonita Springs, regardless of whether we have a hurricane or just a summer rain, we need to address stormwater treatment. And I think we have to pay for it. However, I am concerned that you want to have a non-ad valorem assessment rather than something that might be added, perhaps as an extra district on our taxes. Because opening the gates for a non-ad valorem assessment, $50 sounds really reasonable right now to most of us who have homes. But we don't even know yet what that credit might be that you're going to allow people that are in communities like Bonita Bay or Pelican Bay or Pelican Landing or wherever else, that they already have stormwater treatment, ponds, whatever. It's only the beginning of the tip of the iceberg, and once that assessment is agreed upon, the only way it can go is up. And I'm sorry, I've been in this building, in this room a couple of years ago, hearing people talk about their pie-in-the-sky dreams of how to alleviate traffic on Bonita Beach Road. And we've yet to see anything really happen. The gondolas are not going down Coconut Road, and the roundabouts are not at some of the intersections. And you know what? Sometimes the traffic is nil on Bonita Beach Road because of floodwaters. I'm not saying I'm looking forward to floodwaters, because we do need to address the stormwater treatment, and I think we all need to pay for it. But I would ask that you consider some type of option within our tax structure, not a non-ad valorem assessment. And finally, I would just like to add that I understand that you are applying for outside funds, which I applaud you. And it said on the website that you needed to have, and I'm going to quote, a dedicated funding source to qualify for some of these funds. Does it have to be non-ad valorem in order to qualify, or could it be a line item on our tax bill? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, good evening.
Hi.
Ron, how are you? Go ahead.
Good.
This button doesn't really work, so don't worry about it.
I'm
Go right
unlimited
ahead.
then, thank you very much. I've got some questions because I understand that this is all about tonight. Direct questions you folks can answer. My name is Ron Pure, Bonita Springs, 25 plus years. Why aren't you guys yet to pursue the concept, and it's not a foreign one, of impact fees on developers specifically dedicated to stormwater management? They've been in other places for years. We've had problems for decades. Why that hasn't raised its head here in this city is beyond me, and I think it's doable because, as far as I'm concerned, they're the first line of offenders. They do a great job in general, but the new buildings mean that we've got to build new roads to feed them out of our coffers and theirs. They have agreed to impact fees for roads. So I'd ask you to pursue that. The cost to date, I'd be interested in knowing how much exactly Stantec has either billed the city or expects at this point, or has been paid to the city. That's the company that you're entertaining as having a stormwater utility or handle the engineering and so on. I'm amazed that you folks didn't feel comfortable enough, or for whatever reason you didn't go to the county to have the county develop a software package that would do exactly what Stantec has delivered, I'm told, and that is an overview or another layer of mapping that has to do with the hard surfaces that are creating puddles and floods and so on in the city. I think that's an opportunity to at least address it, even though we haven't so far, to make it easier for all other places in our county that have to deal with stormwater management. Have them come up with the software. They've got a lot of money. They're flush with money, so to speak. The utility, this is an ad infinitum situation. It's ongoing forever. The fee is currently $50, but that is not a limited amount. You can charge, if they're established, can charge more as a fee in coming years. Is that correct? And that's all for now. We're allowed to speak again if we want. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Good evening, council members. My name is Ann Wood. I'm going to speak specifically to the neighborhood I live in, which is off of Old 41. It is Bonita Isles. And I'm going to read from a letter that was distributed to you earlier today. In addition to that, there were comments from a lady a little ahead of me with regard to a better understanding of the $1.7 million budget and how it was determined. I don't know, and I'd like to know. I'm also concerned about the collection of this each fiscal year thereafter, the proposal to do that, and what the money's going to be used for as part of the budget. So according to my letter, I'm just going to read, the newer developments permitted by Lee County and the city of Bonita Springs, following Lee County, were required to retain their own stormwater within the confines of each development. I live in a gated community that's approximately 5 years old. When it was developed, it was mandated by a development order that all stormwater be maintained within the community. All of the stormwater runoff generated from impervious surfaces within our community is retained with a perimeter berm completely surrounding the development with a drainage system and a lake, all of which is completely paid for and maintained by our HOA fees. Therefore, there's no need for residents living in communities such as this one to be assessed for stormwater utility. In addition, we are paying a portion of our property tax to South Florida Water Management District, and not just my community, the entire city of Bonita Springs, for maintaining a district-wide stormwater system already. This assessment would just be another tax that contributes nothing to my particular development and to others that are in the same circumstances. I agree that there are issues that need to be dealt with within the community, and the budget would be good for better understanding, and the reason for fiscal year, additional fiscal years would be good to know. Communities, developments that fall under the guidelines of development orders should not be assessed for stormwater utility is basically my objection. I think that's about it. All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks for being here. Welcome. Good evening.
Hi. I'm going to thank the City Council and Mayor and Administration for this opportunity to speak. My name is Deb Nestle Hoffman. I'm from Cypress Plantation 2. It's just due east of Old 41, north of here. But first, I'd like to present a letter from your friend Ben Hershenson, who could not be here tonight, and he asked me to read this to you. Due to my absence from the area, I am submitting my comments in writing. The creation of a stormwater utility for our city. I am very passionate about the unequivocal need for this utility. We have experienced flooding in many of our neighborhoods over the years, be it from Hurricane Irma in 2017 or Tropical Storm Faye in 2008. We know flooding, and we must do something about it. Numerous workshops were held during the late fall 2018 and winter of 2019. Those workshops were well attended, and the clear message from those forums was that a majority supported the idea of a stormwater utility to obtain funds for major flood mitigation projects. The obvious question, how do we pay for all the things that we need done? In my opinion, this has been establishing a stormwater utility where every property owner contributes is the only realistic way. When that is done, doors will be open for grants because we can show funding agencies, private and public, that Bonita Springs recognizes its responsibilities to try and reduce this costly and dangerous flooding and also to preserve good quality of water. Everyone who owns property in Bonita has a responsibility to do all that they can to protect and maintain property values. The city also has a responsibility to do it to protect its citizens. There are some details, like the utility that has to be worked out, fees for mobile homes, trailers, smaller homes, etc., and those concerns I know will be resolved. When people look at their trim, their truth and millage notices, they need to see how much of their taxes actually go to our city and how much goes to Lee County. They'll be amazed to find the small fraction goes to Bonita Springs. We simply do not have the funds to do what is essential to mitigate our flooding problems and preserve our water quality. To each and every city council member, this should not be a political issue. If we do not support the establishment of a stormwater utility, then I seriously wonder how we are going to accomplish what has to be done. Please vote to support a stormwater utility. The members of the City Council have a fiduciary and immense responsibility, not only to the constituents in their district, but to each and every citizen of Bonita Springs, to do what is in the best interest of the majority of the residents. This is the day, this is the time, this is our collective responsibility for the tomorrows to come when we will likely face another Irma. The next time we have to do better. And one way to ensure that is by supporting the creation of a stormwater utility for our city now. And that's from Ben Hershenson, Avalon Lee Drive, Bonita Springs. And I'd just like to add, I know I'm about up with time, that I'm from Cypress Plantation too. It's a 1981 to 84 complex. We don't do anything about our parking lots, and it's awful. But we're at this point, so we need help. And we think this is a minimal fee, and it's an insurance for the future. It's being proactive for the future. Every taxpayer ends up paying when we have a disaster in one way or another. Let's be proactive about our payments. I'm not wealthy, neither are any of my neighbors, but we aren't against taxes or assessments if we see a value to them and we reap some benefit from them. So thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks for being here. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Mayor, council members, my name is Craig Palmer. I live at 27749 Forester Drive. I've been a permanent resident full-time for 22 years in Bonita Springs, one of my favorite places in the world. I am all in favor of stormwater assessment. I would just like to ask the question. I know I'm not going to get an answer right now, but if you do non-ad valorem, a single family will pay $50, a condo will pay $20. If you do a real ad valorem, not a non-ad valorem, the fortunate, affluent people that may have a $10 million home and be taxed at $60,000 will probably pay a lousy $1,000 and meaningless to them. If you have the less fortunate that live down where the flooding occurs, their homes are probably worth $200,000. Their tax is less than $300, they may pay $10, which still is something to them. The only thing that I would like to say is I think that this is important. I think the approach of doing non-ad valorem is incorrect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Pretty good, Mayor. Mayor, Councilman, I wanted to address this issue on the stormwater utility. One of my heroes is Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln once said that the role of government is to do for the people what the people cannot do for themselves. And maintaining a stormwater drainage system in Bonita Bay is something that individual people can't do for themselves. So I applaud the focus of the council on how to manage stormwater within Bonita Bay.
I also wanted to congratulate you for obtaining your grants, as I understand it, with respect to Spring Creek and the flooding along Spring Creek. Spring Creek is the northern border of Bonita Bay, but it's also the northern border for many of the communities along Terry, including the Bonita Country Club. And I'm glad to see that we're going to do something in terms of controlling the storm water in that area. So I think everybody is in agreement with the storm water utility. It's simply a matter of how we're going to pay for it. I would suggest that we really don't have a rainy day fund. If you remember, what basically happened is that the unallocated or unappropriated general fund surplus that was in effect or in place at the time of Irma was used to spend the monies to recover from Irma and seek reimbursement of those monies from FEMA. But what that did was to put a number of projects on hold. And those projects continue to be important to Bonita Springs. Now that that money has been reimbursed, those projects can get started. So that's really not money that we have just setting aside that has no use. There are projects that are lined up to be funded with that money, and I would encourage you to do so. What we have in our reserves is about $1 million in a hurricane reserve. We have no reserves for sheet flow of the water coming down from 325 square miles of land below the Okeechobee. What we do have is Lee County increasing the mining operations that is impacting our ability to store water in our limestone projects or our limestone formation. So we're going to end up with more sheet flow. And the other part of the $5.1 million that's on the books is for 4 months of operating expenses of the city. So I think what you need to do is you need to find a continuing source of funds. I think that the stormwater treatment that's needed in Bonita Springs is not $1.7 million. It's probably not even $10 million. It's probably way more than that. It's got to be funded over time. To me, there's two ways of doing it. It's the assessment fee, the $50, collect so much a year for so many years to pay for it, or the alternative, which I hope you might want to consider, is going into this Big Cypress watershed program administered by Collier County. I don't know that there's any reason why Bonita Springs couldn't be part of that. I encourage you to take a look at those two things.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Kris. Good evening. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Walter McCarthy. I live at 25161 Bay Cedar Drive in the Pelican Landing community. I'm also the chairman of the elected Board of Supervisors of the Bayside Improvement Community Development District, and our attorney was the first speaker tonight. And if I may, there are also two members of the Board of Supervisors here also, Mr. Bill Nicholson and Mr. Bourree Kramer. I think the stormwater utility is a splendid idea, but as Mr. Cox indicated, there's an issue of fairness here that we're trying to raise, and Bayside Improvement Community Development District is kind of unique in the fact that we have an environmental resource permit of which we are the operating entity for it. We're an NPDES co-permittee along with the City of Bonita Springs in the Lee County system. We take in our surface water from outside of our community and bring it through our community and handle it in our community as well. We also uniquely discharge, all of our discharges are into waters of the state. So none of the surface water that we handle becomes an issue for the city of Bonita Springs. Bayside Improvement Community Development District has a budget of that approaches $500,000 a year that we devote to surface water management. We've been doing this since 1994 when the CDD was formed. We have all the infrastructure in place to handle it, and we manage it, I think, well. what we're asking is that there be recognition for places like Bayside Improvement CDD and the lady who spoke earlier from Bonita Isles. We're kind of, in our own little ways, unique. And I think there should be a way to treat these people so that we've been paying through our non-ad valorem assessments for many, many years for the proper management of our system. And we just ask that that be considered as part of your determination of what the fees should be, so that the constituents of Bayside Improvement Community Development District are treated fairly. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Welcome, Todd. How are you?
Good evening. Good to see you, Mayor. I'm Todd Truax. I live at 26478 Doverstone in Hawthorne. I've been in town about 12 years. I had the pleasure of working with the mayor during the recovery from Hurricane Irma. I'm on the board for the Cafe of Life. We helped spend tens of thousands of dollars rehabbing the trailers along the river in Imperial Estates. I forget the name of the development, where the floors turned into wet graham cracker, and folks that had limited incomes couldn't have any place else to live. And we delivered a ton of water and MREs and everything else. And so I want to thank you for your efforts for that. And that's why we're doing this, so we don't have to keep bringing MREs and fixing floors and trailers, so we can address the water. So I'm for the stormwater assessment. This $50 a year, it doesn't seem too steep, considering having to drive around Home Depot and the water's 3 feet deep and not being able to make the turn from Bonita Beach to Imperial. I know what you've been handed is basically what the county has failed to do. They haven't worked with the South Florida Water Management District. We're one of the 67 counties. We're the only county in the state that doesn't work with a water management district. And the county of Lee has decided not to be a part of the water management district. So all these new developments aren't addressing their water issues. I live in one of those newer developments in Hawthorne, and we had fish in the street during Irma because all our lakes overflowed and the water was just backed up into the street. So I agree and I applaud your efforts. Nobody wants new taxes. Everybody in this room will raise their hand that they don't want new taxes. But we also don't want flooding. And if we don't address it, and we wait for the county to address it, we won't have drains that look like that. We'll have drains with fish swimming out of them. So I applaud your efforts and thank you for what you're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. Welcome. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is James Hogan. I live in Bonita. I've owned a home here since '95. Been coming here since 1978, so a little familiar. I've seen some good changes here, but I'm not in favor of this. I sent you all a letter. I'm sure you haven't seen it, but there was a lot of questions, and one of them that I had is in your letter to the community. You state $1.7 million, but with a lot of collection by everybody and fees by everybody, I'd like to know how this money is intended to be spent. I mean, $1.7 million is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money if you're doing a project. I mean, you can spend that in an hour. And it looks like this is all going to bureaucracy. And this $1.7 million is not going to get anything done. And then next year, when it's not $50, and it has to be increased because funds are needed to further push that on. And we all know that it's not going to stay $50. That just isn't going to happen. Everybody knows that. So I think that we want to, I would like to see that better addressed. And every time a letter goes out with something, there's always you always make the statement, and it says, failure to pay. There's always a threat in there, I mean, we all know that we have to pay. We don't need to be threatened to do it when it is, it'll obviously it's going to pass tonight. But I'm the way it is written, the way it's being done now, I am opposed to it because there was no way of knowing how that money is going to be spent. Sounds good, but it's not going to happen. You're not going to get anything done for $1.7 million, I'll tell you that right now. I think you all know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name's Lori Stevens, and I'm a property owner in San Carlos Estates. We're paying for the establishment and maintenance of current water management system in our community. I don't have a tax bill in front of me, but I believe it's in the hundreds of dollars a year. I don't see any details on the credits for specific communities, and in order to make a decision on whether to appeal this resolution and assessment, it's necessary to understand the credits for communities like San Carlos Estates. Will there be separate public hearings on the assessment roll and an opportunity to appeal the specific assessment, or is the only opportunity to appeal within 20 days of the notice mailed to property owners? And by the way, I could not locate a date on the notice, so it's not clear to me when appeals would have to be filed. I understand a budget has been established and a residential unit value corresponding to that budget. It seems an analysis of the communities with water management and appropriate credits would have been necessary. That would have been something you would have taken a look at. So I urge you to consider what communities such as San Carlos Estates are already paying for water management, and ideally to share at least a preliminary outline of credits for such communities before voting on the proposed resolution. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Diane Benj, and I live at 27870 Windsor Road. My home was built in 1952, and I've occupied the home since October 2nd of 1992. I have one of those grate drains on my property, at the end of my property on the corner where the stop sign is, and for that, the whole time I have maintained that. The city has not done anything as far as they were supposed to take care of it, mow it. I do all of that, and our water drains right into the river. I haven't had any problem with any flooding, and waste the management thing, I don't know where our part would go. We'd have to build something or somehow to take ours back. And then south of Bonita Beach Road, off of Windsor Road on that side, I don't know how many years ago, but they had done drainage pipes across the road because they had flooded so much by Sneaky Pete's and all of that, that they had done that. So now we both drain into the river. And they have, I don't know what kind of thing is, some kind of machine that works and collects all the debris. They don't clear that out, and the ditches are always full of the weeds and things that grow in the ditches across the street from me. I live right behind the public center, and there's a proposed Windsor Road extension, which that will go south of Angler's Paradise, which is at the end of the road at the Imperial River, and it kind of floods there. Where are they going to put the road? What are they going to do with the management there? That part I don't understand. But I feel that since I have maintained this property for almost 27 years, next month will be 27 years, that I don't agree with it because I've taken care of it myself. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for being here. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. I sent you all an email. Maybe you read it, maybe you didn't. I'm going to repeat it, partly for the group here. And I do understand there's a great deal of confusion about this, and I hope this meeting will clear some of that up. $4.17 a month. That's the fee for a single-family home. Condo, $1.67 a month. A trailer, I believe, is $2.50. Since the millage rate is set for this year, there will be no additional money for stormwater runoff unless we have this fee. Even if we use everything available in the budget, it's not going to be enough. Even the fee won't cover everything we ought to do, but it will allow the city to do more and do it sooner. It's been said that the fee is not fair, particularly for smaller homes, even for condos. But we pay a monthly fee to BSU of $8.11, regardless of how much water we use. My garbage pickup fee is $17 a month, regardless of how much garbage I put out by the street. There's base rates for electricity and phone service. I pay school taxes of $450 a year, and I don't have any children. It's fair that we pay these fees because it makes us a better city. If you're concerned that some people in some homes pay more than they should, then set some rules for discounts. There are already discounts for condos, mobile homes, communities with stormwater containment systems. Set some additional criteria for deductions, such as home size, total impervious area to pervious lot size. Set it for household income, personal stormwater control measures. And there absolutely should be a discount for commercial properties that have stormwater control features. Does Bonita Springs aspire to be a low-tax, low-quality of life city, or do we want to be the best small city in Florida? Sanibel has a much higher millage rate. Naples has a higher millage rate and a stormwater fee that's 3 times higher than what's proposed. Those communities don't seem to have any problem attracting residents or businesses. People that have their homes flooded, or a relative who dies because an ambulance was delayed for 5 minutes because of a flooded street, will blame this city council if they don't vote for this fee. Some people forget easily, but not everyone. I really believe this should be a unanimous vote for approval. And a question, won't a good stormwater runoff system also help control damage from storm surge? If you want to see examples of flooding in my area, go to Instagram.com and search Bonita flooding. This is partly after Irma, but other times as well. And by the way, people have said the fee will never go down. Yes, it will go down if we find out that the money is not needed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Joe St. John.
Please, thank you very much.
Joe St. John from 13,000 Amberley in Bonita Springs. I'm not opposed to a stormwater management district to improve quality of water. Here's what I have a problem with, and it's one word: fill. In the 33 years I've lived in Bonita Springs, since the city council has rezoned countless parcels for development, and you're still doing it. Here's the bottom line: more fill, more development, more flooding, no improvement of flooding or water quality. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Welcome. Mayor, Council, my name is Darren Frizzell. My company is called Flow Clear Water Systems, Inc. We have been developing for the last 7-8 years on how to handle the contamination of overfill contaminated water from rainwater. And I don't mind paying if everybody contribute a certain amount, but the bottom line is I work a lot in my day job in construction for all my life, 30-some years, where we feel that it's really important. Why hasn't developers been responsible for their own property? Any rain running off of their own, whatever size development, everybody, when it becomes a development, you know, we're talking a massive amount of rain runoff off the roof, off the driveway, off the streets. Just like the gentleman said behind me, there's a new code every year. Every year it gets higher and higher. For us that have older homes, we seem to be suffering. It's great for the community. I love when a community, you know, grows and so forth. But when we're at a certain elevation and we're stuck at that elevation and everyone around us is growing, and this is the biggest problem of it all, why can't the developers pay for their own, like a Toll Brother, the massive size, whatever the community is? I'm just saying, it would be, we wouldn't have this argument tonight or ideas to go around it if everybody did their own, including the developer. Because my house is 1994, okay? I came here in 1990. I built my house. And, you know, I've purchased houses in Collier. Every community has the same, but the more they allow growth, which is perfectly fine, it seems to flood the people from yesteryear. And I wanted to know if the city of Bonita Springs has any intentions, or what do they charge, you know, these developers that are creating new and raising the elevation higher. How does that work? Because I never got a straight answer from the county. Does anybody on council have any idea?
This isn't the format, sir, unfortunately, but if you want to leave your name, we'll get you that information. We're happy to do it. But this isn't a dialogue, this is public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Ann Wirtz, and I have been here since '92 in Bonita. Have seen a lot. A lot of it I like and a lot I don't. And I live in a mobile home park on Bonita Beach Road. We have 34 people in our park. And every year the taxes go up and the property things go up that our park adds to. And the bad thing is if you sell a mobile home, nobody can buy unless they have cash. So there's another problem, and that means lots of times our property values, we don't get what we have in them or whatever. And I know that there's a lot of problems here. I can see all that with the stormwater. The thing that I said on Wednesday, I believe it was at the meeting, I feel when I got that bill, I thought, oh my goodness, now my taxes are going to be higher and I can hardly afford what I have now. I'm 83 years old. And I don't get that much anymore, and somehow I'm not getting my husband's retirement, which I've tried to fight, and I can't do that because we both worked at the same place in Pennsylvania, and we moved here in '92, and we love the place, and I've helped with the water problems out on the beaches with the Everglades Society, and I've been here for a lot of things, and I did talk on Wednesday. Some of the things sounds great. The gentleman that said that only mobile homes are going to be charged $2, whatever it is, a month, which I didn't see that when I got my slip in the mail. It was all $40 cut and dry. And I feel if I've got $1 million home, I'd be glad to pay 10 times the $40 if I have that kind of money and that kind of a home here in Bonita. Beautiful place to be, and hope we don't have a hurricane. I know that this stormwater thing is a problem. It's something that I know that we get flood stuff for it from the FEMA, and we've gotten $3 million, I believe, and 7, and there's one more coming. And I know it probably costs more than that for us, but I feel that even like all these new places like they're talking about that have been here, I feel that they should take care of some of their own stormwater. And I feel that we should try, and if you've got $1 million home and you can pay all your taxes and take care of food and everything that you have, your family and all, that's great. I have nobody. And it's sad, you know. And I feel God bless you if you have all that, but I still feel that I think they should look what the property is worth, and if we are going to be charged, I feel that it should be looked at that before we're charged everybody $40. I mean, if I had some money, I would pay it 10 times. Thank you.
Wonderful.
God bless you.
Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor and the council people. Appreciate your having this thing today to talk about stormwater. I do feel that you do have a number of, whether they're communities or they are commercial properties that take care of their own stormwater management, that there ought to be some type of vehicle to take that into consideration. And currently, the way that you have this thing written, at least the way I read it, it doesn't take into consideration any of that whatsoever. And I think that if you need the 1.7 million right now, I would suggest that the council puts an RFP out for all of the property that is owned by the city of Bonita Springs that is surplus property, and put it out for an RFP so that you can get some people that will purchase it. And I think that from some of the other meetings I've gone to, it seems to me like maybe you're getting to the point where you're trying to micromanage what some of the things are going to go on that property. And I believe that if you put an RFP out, you can sell those properties, and you'll certainly get more than the 1.7 million that you're looking for. And that would take care of the water management for the current period for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, folks, please. And I know it's emotional, but we're trying to. Who's next? Other members of the public that would like to speak? I see folks standing, but I don't see anybody coming to the podium. Okay, thank you, folks. I know it's a large group. So thank you very much. We're going to move on now to proposed stormwater assessment fee. Item A is a council discussion of proposed stormwater assessment fee. Council, what's your pleasure?
Mayor, we do have a presentation for you from Stantec, if you...
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City
Good evening,
Council.
welcome.
While they're tracking down the clicker, I have good news and not so good news for you tonight. The good news is that we've been appearing before you on a monthly or greater basis since November. Started work on this process long before that. But I can honestly say from the mayor...
Can you state your name and your company? I apologize for the good of the order here.
I'm sorry. Tim Hancock with Stantec.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. But throughout this process, Mayor, Council, your staff have been terrific to work with. We greatly appreciate that. But more importantly, the residents in the city have been terrific as well. At all of our workshops, at these meetings, at conversations held in the lobby after them, we've gained information and gained understanding. I think some people's questions tonight may be answered fairly simply and fairly straightforward, others maybe not so much. But we have really enjoyed the interaction we've had with your residents, with you and your staff, and hopefully that'll continue at least for the next 2 hours or so. But we'll see how that goes. The bad news is you have another presentation to watch, so here we go. Quick reminder, the current approach for funding your stormwater is strictly through your ad valorem taxes, your property taxes. And you've seen this slide before. Currently, if you take the portion of those taxes that are allocated to stormwater, 93% of that is borne by your residential properties. The issue is that within the city of Bonita Springs, only 68% of the impervious is allocated to your residential properties. So what you have is you have an inequity. You have the residential properties paying a little disproportionate share than do the commercial properties, and that's typical of an ad valorem-based funding approach when we look at things like this. What one thing a stormwater fee can do is resolve that equity. The categories that are created in this stormwater approach are based on what's called an ERU, an equivalent residential unit. And again, I know you folks have heard this time and time again, but there may be some folks here that are seeing this for the first time. So an ERU basically is an equivalent residential unit. So what we did is we looked at all of the residential properties, single-family residential throughout the city. We looked at how much impervious was on each and every one of them, and you came up with an average there. And that became the baseline, 1 ERU. So if you're a typical single-family property, you would be assessed 1 equivalent residential unit. We did the same with your multifamily or condominiums. And we compared that, and that came up with 0.4 ERUs. And then the commercial properties had a broader range, from very small to very large. There was no kind of neat bell-shaped curve, which you'll see a little bit later. And so that category is based on actual impervious. So those are the 3 categories that we have created, remembering, going back to the early conversations, is one to keep this fairly simple, not make it too complicated. You always can drill down and fine-tune later. So the proposed fee summary, when folks got their notices, it was based on either you or an ERU, meaning a residential property, single owner. Didn't matter at that point whether it was a mobile home or a traditional stick-built. Bottom line is, if you were 1 ERU, your maximum assessment would be $50. If you're a residential property, multiple owners, or what we typically will call a condo, you're going to be at 0.4 or $20. And non-residential property varies based on the actual amount of impervious you have. So the question was, where did the $1.7 million come from? And the answer was your 2018-2019 budget. That was the number we took for what you currently are paying through property taxes in your 2018-2019 budget for stormwater. And we calculated that and rolled that into. So this is based on actual budget numbers from the 2018-2019 budget. With that, I'm going to turn it over to David Hyder, who's going to discuss with you a little bit more about how we get to those ERUs, but I assure you this is only a handful of slides, and then we'll be open to your questions.
Great, thank you very much.
Good evening, Council. As Tim mentioned, we did look at the impervious surface for all properties within the city of Bonita. And so this first slide here shows the impervious surface. You can see the count of properties on the left-hand side, and then the bell-shaped curve is essentially the impervious surface on the property. And so you can see that what we found was that the average impervious surface was 4,500 square feet was the average for residential properties. There's about 20,000 residential properties within the city. The largest impervious was 29,000, but the average, again, was 4,500. You have a fairly nice bell-shaped curve right at that 4,500. And so what we did as a basis was to say, okay, our equivalent residential unit, our ERU, which we'll use for stormwater billing, will be 4,500, and that will be our 1 ERU. When we looked at condominiums, you'll see that they actually have a significantly less impervious area per unit. You've got about 12,000 condo units in the city. When we look at the average impervious on condo units, we're at 1,800 square feet. And so again, the approach there is for condo units that we would charge a fractional ERU. It would be 0.4 ERUs. That equates to the $20 per year, 1,800 divided into the 4,500. Then when we looked at non-residential properties, you can see that there's a wide spread. There is no bell-shaped curve. There's a tremendous difference property to property. And the important thing to remember here when we're talking about impervious surface is it's been determined that's the best measure of what runoff comes off of a property. So if I have a property and it's really significant and large and it has 100% impervious, it's going to generate a lot more runoff than a property that doesn't have that same amount of impervious. So essentially it's a way to measure contribution to the system, and it's an industry standard. It's very common for communities to use this type of approach to charge for stormwater because it's a proxy. And to that point, to the extent that you can encourage people not to put impervious on their property, particularly when it's non-residential properties, you then have the ability to incentivize them to not put that on their property because they could lower their fee. So essentially a way to incentivize less development, less intense development. In terms of the average, the average when we looked at, when we looked at non-residential properties was about 46,000 square feet. But over the last couple weeks, after folks got the notice, one of the concerns within the community has been mobile homes. And part of that 19,715 properties that we categorized as single family, there's about 2,200 that are mobile homes. And so what we looked at here was that in this graphic here, the left-hand side where you can see that shading, that's the mobile homes, the count of mobile homes in terms of impervious. And so we looked at this category of parcels to determine whether it makes sense to pull them out and charge them a different fee. And essentially what we looked at when we pulled out the mobile homes is that they are to the left-hand side. They're not at the 4,500 square feet of impervious. Their average is actually about 2,500 square feet of impervious. And so if we took the same approach that we used on condos and essentially divided that into the 1 ERU, that would make them an equivalent of 0.6 ERUs, or $30 per year. So one alternative approach to what was sent out and notice that was provided would be that we would break out mobile homes as a separate category. They essentially would be charged 0.6 ERUs or $30 per year. No change to the single family properties. They would be 1 ERU. And then residential properties that are condominiums would stay at the $20. This would have a very minor impact to your overall revenue collection, about $43,000 less. And then one final alternative that we wanted to consider, because of the fact that you can have really small single-family homes that are not mobile homes, was to come up with another alternative, which would keep the same category, so you'd still have residential properties, single owner, but to create a small homes, essentially, category. So the way this would work is if you're a residential property, single owner, single property, and you're over 1,800 square feet of impervious, you'd be 1 ERU, $50 per year. If you're 1,800 or less, you'd be treated just like a condo, 0.4 ERUs, $20 per year. And then if your condo would stay the same, again, this would have a minor impact to the revenues. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Tim to talk about credits, because I know that was an important topic.
Thank you for that information.
We have always recommended that the city consider and ultimately adopt a credit program. It has a twofold purpose. Number one, recognizing those that are already contributing, whether it be in a private community where they manage their own stormwater system for that development. It's also to incentivize people to maintain that system properly. And to that end, the reason why we have not put forth a specific detailed credit program at this stage is quite simple. If you have an existing permit and you operate your own water management system, unless someone can certify that you are maintaining it correctly and it's operating correctly, you may be getting a credit for something you're not doing. So what we would recommend to you is that as the process goes forward, that you look at basically following a multi-step process where those who wish to apply for a credit may do so, and that would require a degree of validation that their stormwater system is functioning properly. Believe it or not, there are a number of folks out there that have permits within a planned development, but they're not maintaining them. We don't think it's fair that they automatically get a credit while the communities that are doing that maintenance, would get the same credit. So what we're suggesting is that you implement a system. And that system would look like something like this, where they basically fill out a simple application, a certification by a licensed engineer that it is operating and maintained as designed. That is not an overly complicated process to do. It usually can be done by visual inspection, and then an on-site inspection would validate that. You want to keep it as simple as possible, but you want to at least have validation the system is working as intended, and then the credit would be issued. So what do credits look like? Again, I'm going to take this body back. You've seen this before. We look at the city's stormwater management responsibilities in two different ways. There's one we call the baseline cost or system-wide costs. These are the conveyance structures, the roadside swales, the portions of the system that allow our roads to dry off as quickly as possible, to avoid standing water and safety issues on public roadways. These are the arteries of the system, if you will, as well as the veins that run along the roadsides to make sure, because I'm fairly sure no matter what community you live in this community, there are times when you actually go outside the gate. And when you do, and there's been a storm, you're probably going to want to be able to drive on the roadways. So we need to make sure those roadways stay clear and clean, and if they aren't, they don't call their HOA, they call you. So that is the city's responsibility, and everyone in the city has a responsibility to share in making sure that core system is maintained properly. So that's one element. The second element is that local system. And if you are a neighborhood that is managing your own system, or you've even gone above and beyond and you're doing more than that, a filter marsh, for example, is one, or if you are direct discharging into a body and not into anything the city maintains, you should be, and we have always recommended, you be eligible for a credit. But that's in the local system. The reason is that saves the city, if you will, the money of having to go in and clean out roadside swales in your neighborhood or maintain lakes in your neighborhood. Because the city doesn't have to do it, they shouldn't be paying for that twice. So the second part of that, the second tier, which right now in the current city budget equates to just under $500,000, that total amount would be eligible for credit up to 50%, but starting at 15%. So how do we determine which one you're in? Our recommendation is if you're what's called a level 1, in other words, you have a detention basin, a retention basin, and let me give a quick 30-second education on this. To my knowledge, there are no properties in the city of Bonita Springs that do not discharge stormwater. There's an idea that if you have lakes, you hold all of your stormwater. But on almost every community, there's something called a discharge structure. So as the water in those lakes rise during a storm event, the water ultimately hits a control structure, which allows it to discharge off the property. If you're not, you're what's called a zero discharge. To my knowledge, I haven't heard anything tonight that equates to a zero discharge system. So all properties discharge. You retain the water for water quality, but ultimately it discharges the site. So if you have that typical system, you'd be eligible for 15% credit. If, however, you're what we call level 2, which means that you have all the elements of a level 1 system, however, you discharge outside the city's system, what we may have called direct discharge, you'd be eligible for credit up to 50% of that second tier. That's a fairly consistent and standard recommendation. There is some science behind it and some math behind it that equates to how you get there. And the bona fide agricultural, the 100% exemption, that's state law. That's not something that we have recommended that you do or don't implement. That's something that your governor and cabinet have determined you shall implement. So if you're a bona fide agricultural use, the stormwater fee would not apply to you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of our presentation. I, as well as Molly Williams on specific stormwater issues, is here to answer any questions. Mr. James Hale, who heads up our GIS group, he's the guy who does all of that mapping that I don't understand. He's here. And if anything has a dollar sign attached to it, that's Mr. Hyder. So hopefully I've left myself nothing.
Council, questions?
I just want to thank Tim and his team. I think we probably have had in city council meetings about 10 presentations or maybe more, and public meetings, and I think they've done a fine job. I understand that, you know, people are busy with their lives and they haven't had a chance, so it's good that we're doing this tonight as well. But I think the outreach has been good, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Fred, did you have something?
Well, yeah, I've heard a lot of different comments, and a lot of them are good. I understand where everybody's come from. If we were to approve this, I would want to see it for immediately we go into reassessing the way we're charging. I personally believe that most house trailers, especially the small ones, are not nearly as big as you're saying, but I can live with that this year. I just want to see us go into this. And the other thing that people have overlooked, most everybody that's spoken has spoken flooding, flooding, flooding. And we got two problems in Bonita. We have flooding. We have some areas in the city that will probably always flood. We also have water quality. Water quality is everybody's problem. The Imperial River, like it or not, and it's an unfunded state mandate. We all know what those are. They tell you got to fix it, but they don't give you the money to do it. It's an impaired body of water. And DEP is the one that has declared it, not us. So we have to deal with that, and that costs money. And then in addition to that, the Red Tide and the Blue-Green Algae Task Force are all of the opinion that pollution is contributing to all that. And so even for those that deliver directly to the river or directly to the Gulf or directly to the Back Bay, we're still polluting, and we got to get a handle on that. Now, the other thing is I live in a community that had a South Florida water management permit. The standards that they were designed to, and it's not anybody's fault other than the people that set the standards, they're way, way inadequate. They're inadequate for flooding. They're really inadequate on water quality. And we gotta do something here to upgrade that. So I would be inclined to say that I would support this for this year. I may want to put it on a referendum, but I want a commitment that if we go forward with this, we're going to really look at this. And I do feel that one size fits all for most homes is not really fair, because there's a small homes. I know where there's probably 400 homes that their average is 9,000 to 10,000 square feet, plus they got a big 4,000 or 5,000 square feet pool cage. So I think we need to look at that and maybe at least analyze if we do it this other way, where we do it a little more precise, maybe levels of ERUs or whatever. Anyway, that's my thoughts for whatever it's worth. But I understand everybody's feelings. I do not like taxes. I've led many a charge against them when I was in a community leader, community activist, whatever. But I think in this case that we need to keep going. We need to do work, and we really don't have the money. In 2017, we wrote off a $3 million loan, and we had to repay the impact fees. Then along came Irma, and even though we've already gotten a substantial amount of money, we ended up starting in, I think it was 18, with a reserve surplus, or whatever you want to call it, 500,000 or thereabouts. So we can't reach in and take that money from FEMA and pay to boost up what we'd be spending on stormwater management anyway. And we're paying for reducing pollution. That's part of the money that we spend every year. The other part is maintaining flowways, and the other part is doing maybe a stormwater drainage project here and one there, but we don't have a lot of money. So, and the chance that we're going to get Lee County to give us that money, we might in a year or two. Things may change, but I don't think we can count on it. So I think we need to do it. We can see what happens at the end of a year, and we may decide that it didn't work and we scrap it. My hope would be we would come up with a system to kind of make it a little fairer. One thing that hasn't been pointed out, what's proposed here in ad valorem doesn't work that way. Anybody that's got a building, whether they're tax exempt or what, they're going to pay a fee. So if we go back to ad valorem, there's a lot of good things about the ad valorem, but a lot of big facilities that happen to be a charity or tax exempt, they're not. So there's nothing in life unfair is not fully fair. There's always something unfair about any system you come up with, but that's what I'm thinking anyway.
Mike?
Yeah, so one of your slides showed that under the current model, residential pays more than commercial because of ad valorem, whereas commercial has higher impervious. But taxing businesses more, businesses don't just pay the money, they have to make the money. So that just gets passed on to customers. So in the end, it's still the residents that are going to be paying it, even though it got shifted to the businesses. So it's just going to be a pass-through. I liked the considerations for mobile homes and smaller homes. But then on the other side, I thought maybe there should be a higher rate because some of those, I think you had the largest was 29,000 square feet. And it looked like there were quite a few, ranging from like 80 to 20. So I think that's kind of in the right direction, but I'm still not for doing the fee. One of the things I noticed, section 3 on the ordinance, it says makes equivalent residential unit will be a maximum of 50 per year. I think that's only $50 this year because it's not capped at that forever. It can be changed at a later date. But it makes it sound like it'd never be higher than 50. So I don't think that's right in there. And then on page 3, it talks about the maximum stormwater utility fee can, but is not required to be imposed in the future fiscal years without additional notice. It's $50. So we don't have to send out an additional notice every year saying that we're going to tax you another $50. Because ad valorem every year they're going to get a trim notice that's going to say how much they're going to be paying. But this says we're not required to send out a letter saying that they're going to be paying $50 again.
Correct. We will be able to renew each year. You'll still have to adopt a resolution. It'll still be part of your budget process. So in any year, you can reduce it from $50, not move it forward. But if you make changes to that rate, then you have to renotice it. So it can stay 50 per year until you change it.
And then nobody gets a notice, so we leave it at 50.
Well, it'll show up. It'll still show up on your trim. So you'll see but it won't be an individualized notice that everyone here received saying the specific purposes for what the fee was being charged for, what it applies to their property. That only occurs when there's changes.
Okay.
Up or down?
I believe it's
Only on the up.
either way, but I'll.
And then there were comments about, it only being $4 a month and, other fees are $8 a month, $2 a month. And it's just another fee and it's not that much, but, that's why there's a saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. So it's, just another thing on top of everything else. And the main reason why I'm against doing it this way is I feel it's a regressive tax that affects the poor and those living on fixed incomes more so than others in our community. Ad valorem is a flat tax that everybody pays the same percentage, based on the taxable values of their house, making it a much more fair way to collect the tax. That's why we do ad valorem for most of our taxing purposes. And ad valorem also has the built-in protections of homestead exemptions and the Save Our Homes caps on increases every year. But, you know, so I just don't want to see Bonita be a place where only the wealthy can reside. So that's why I'm going to be voting against this, and I would much rather see it the ad valorem way. And also during the initial
Folks, please, thank you.
initial conversations, you know, when I'd asked what it would equate to on the millage rate, I kind of asked the wrong question, because 2/3 of this fee is already in our current budget. So it really wouldn't have been as big of an increase that we were originally looking at, than 0.959 something. So it would have only been like 1/3 of that increase. So.
Councilman,
Thanks, Mike. Yes.
just to clarify the point about whether you would get individualized mail notice if it goes up or down, the statute requires that if there's any change in the amount, there'll be individualized mail notice, or if the purpose of the charge changes. So if the stormwater fee changes, the program changes in any way, then the additional notice will go out individually to every property owner.
Great. Thank you. Peter?
I got a few comments. One is kind of Fred walked up to the line and Mike mentioned it, but I do think, so I'm going to support this, but I do think that we should make the discount as demonstrated up here for the mobile homes or small size homes. I don't know why we couldn't do that this year. So I, like just about everybody in town, don't want to pay more money. I pay substantial taxes, and I think a lot of people here do too. One thing I think, since we have a crowd here, that people should realize, let me just give you some figures to put in context what your Bonita Springs taxes are. If you have a house that has a value of $275,000, you pay $3,700 a year in property taxes. Of that $3,700, $180 goes to the city of Bonita Springs. Just take a look, not at the front of your tax bill, look at the back of it. It's 5% of your total tax bill. So we're kind of proud here of government. We all are. We disagree on certain things and agree on certain things, but we're very proud of government light. But when it comes to financing and things like this, it's not just light, it's kind of anorexic. All right? It's $180 this guy is paying out of $3,700. So the other thing I think a lot of people in town do know, but I think it'd be good for everybody to know, is this is not the only initiative on this matter. So we've had people, Peter, Fred, I've kind of pitched it sometimes, tried very hard up in Tallahassee. After Irma, we asked for, it was about $20 million in funding for capital projects to prevent stormwater and Bonita Springs from flooding again. 20 million. We didn't get anything. Last year, in the legislative process, in spite of a lot of good effort by a lot of people on this council, last year we applied for, was it 780,000 or 800,000? A lot of hard work. Fellow over here was ill and he was still working his way up there. I pitch hit one day, went up there, and we had a guy, we'll go nameless, but a very senior guy in the Senate said, well, Bonita's, why do you need money? Bonita's just loaded with money. All right? So we're trying hard, but that 20 million gives you an idea of a measure of this problem. So I don't want to go on too much longer, but I will tell you that this is all based on studies that have been done. There's a 180-page report that was presented to City Council at public meetings, and it talked about essential projects to help mitigate flooding. One has to do with Logan Boulevard in Fred's district, and Fred's done a great job on that in terms of not just Logan Boulevard, but as appropriate, sending more water south to Collier County, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a massive problem that this city has flooded. None of us wants to pay more money. I live in a community, all the water goes to Tide. None of it is in the flood. It's where Chris Corey got up and talked about Bonita Bay. But people in my community that I've talked to have said, hey, look, we're part of the greater city. We need to be contributing and doing that in the context of the 50. So Peter, I'm sorry to go on so long, but that's it, and that's why I'm for it. And I'd make a motion to approve for further discussion if I had a second. And Fred, it's up, do you want to put something in for the mobile homes?
Yeah, I think we ought to.
It's already in there.
It's already in there?
Yeah, do the proposal where it's 1,800 and some square feet for the small homes, wasn't it?
So there's, I just want to clarify, so the resolution would call for $50 as the maximum.
Maximum.
We are looking for direction on what, one of the two options that were
what
presented by
Fred said.
Stantec. $30 for, I believe, 2,500 square foot units, or 1,800 square foot and below. That would be option 2, $20. That would basically include small mobile homes, small homes, anything under 1,800 square feet.
Now, so that 1,800 would be, if you had a mobile home that only had 1,800, it would be it'd be
impervious,
yeah.
yes.
1,800 affects both single-family residential and
Or real small
mobile
buildings.
home units.
Anything
residential
1,800.
And condos.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I think we need to make that part of the motion.
All right, so I make it part of the motion. Greg, second it. Thanks, Peter.
Laura might also want to make a recommendation on whether you want us to implement the mitigation program.
Well, for sure.
I think I want to let the rest of council speak before we get too worried about.
Well, let me just correct, because we have one motion here.
Yeah.
It's obvious that the credits should be in place. We've had 3 presentations before this day from Stantec, and Tim did it again today. And there should be appropriate credits for, as he outlined, for stormwater systems that are already in place.
Laura.
As Mike pointed out, 2/3 of what we need for stormwater management is already in our budget. The mayor has asked us countless times to find the money in the budget that we have. We're going over the budget, and we're finalizing it, and the total revenues for 2019 are greater than the total revenues from 2018. If we didn't have Irma, only if, but we did, but we're still in a better position. Our property values are going up, so we'll even have a greater source of money. And I am all for, well, I don't know, I don't understand necessarily the process. Why can't we just put property up for sale, get appraisals from independent people, put it up for sale and see if we sell it, and put out the proposals? And dedicate the money sold from all property down, not all of it, but dedicate a portion of it, just like we do with road impact fees, that money from downtown, the sale of those properties, goes directly to stormwater management. And I received a number of people that said that they didn't mind paying $50 for stormwater management. And I was wondering if people can write a check to the city of Bonita Springs and put on the line for stormwater management only. You can do that with your taxes. They give you that option. So can we do that if people want to? Because, talk's cheap. Everybody here, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are saying, oh, it's $50. And then in one breath, you say, it's only $50, but we know it's ad infinitum and it'll just keep going up. Collier County just did an ad valorem tax on garbage, right? And it's $200. Not to exceed $255 for the next 5 years. All right, so how quickly do you think it's going to go to $255, and in 5 years, what do you think it's going to go to? And I just, I think Murphy was an optimist, and I just think once we put this in and we fund it, it's going to turn into a tax straight out. It's going to be ad valorem, because the whole, Tim, you were talking, Mr. Hancock, you were talking, let's keep it simple. Well, the way you're calculating the ERUs and then exceptions, and then some people in Bonita Bay, I don't know how many people were represented, but some are for not paying anything and others are for, hey, we're willing to pay our share, even though we don't contribute at all. They would be, I think, in your definition, 100%. No, they don't. They don't go directly out. Right.
Not unless they start farming bell peppers.
Okay. But, so I just believe that we can tighten the money, money's coming in, develop downtown, and then more revenue comes in, and we fund it by moving money around. Money's fungible. And so I would say that we have it in the budget in the water management, so we just dedicate sales from properties from downtown to the stormwater management that Stantec has presented us.
Great, thank you.
I'm
Greg?
voting against, if
Yes.
it's not clear.
Thank you.
Well, you guys all finish that way.
Greg.
All right, sorry. I got a little bit different thought on this whole thing. Obviously, I second it. I'm for it. I think something needs to be done. I believe in the council. I believe in what Laura's saying about selling the property downtown. But you know what? I've been up here since April of 2016. 3 years. We've been talking about selling the property downtown. We've yet to move on it. I've been up here since that time talking about infrastructure. Irma hit, talked about flooding, talked about all that stuff. We've done nothing. Zero. We've done nothing. This is the first positive movement we've been there. You've got, in life and in everything, we got to take a leap of faith every once in a while. And the Stantec, the stormwater, in my opinion, is that leap of faith. As the mayor will tell you, 7 years in a row, 6 years in a row, we haven't raised a millage at all. So to say that you're going to keep getting this tax, you're going to keep getting this, yes, property values have creeped up, but we still haven't went after, we need more money, we need more money. We do need more money. Things are failing. Let's go back to it. I've been here 30 plus years. Been on the fire department 30 plus years. 1996, we were pulling people out of IBE. Things shifted a little bit. We started to do a little bit of, let's call it stormwater mitigation. Something else pops up. It's like in life. You always plan to put $1 away for your roof. Something else pops up. That seems to be what happens every year when it comes time to our budget. Either we want to do something and there's projects out there, but then something else pops up. Either the AC in the place goes down, or this happens, or that happens, or God forbid, Irma happens. And now we got to take $8 million to clear the roads, then wait for 2 years to get that back. For me, this just seems another way to help get us to the finish line. It gets us there. It may not get us there this year. It may take 2 to 3 to 5 years. We had a presentation a couple weeks ago. Some of this stuff is going to be $55 million. Obviously, we're not going to raise $55 million in 1 year to fix the roads. We're crazy if we think that. But it at least gets us talking about it. It at least opens the door. Every year, we can come back in this room like we're doing today and reevaluate it. Just like we do with the budget. 7 years, we've not raised the millage. Much to my chagrin, last year, and I was one of the dissenting votes, I wanted to raise the millage because we needed help. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. We still need it. We've got downtown that's suffering. And if I had a leap of faith that we had been out there already and we've gauged what the market value is of bamboo and all that stuff, then great. But here we are, and I know the mayor, and we've all tried it. We have, we're still not at the door to sell this. It may take another year to sell this property. With this RFP, that's going to take some time. So to get the right buyer, and that's going to take the time. And then not only that, you're going to have the construction down there and go through the gauntlet of zoning, community development, and us up here to put the right thing down there. It's not going to be a quick thing. So I agree with you, Laura, that if we could sell it tomorrow, and if someone would walk in the door right now and give us $3 million for that, I'd say, great. Let's do it, and we don't have to do this. We'll allocate that money for it, but I just don't see that happening. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think this is something we need. I don't live in a gated community. I know I'm paying the full amount. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. But every year, we're going to come back here and reevaluate it. Just like every year, we reevaluate the taxes on, or the surcharge on either our FP&L bill or our communication tax, just like we do our ad valorem, just like we do the other taxes and or fees. I just think that we need to take a leap of faith 1 year and see what it's going to give us. If it doesn't, get rid of it. And you know what? At the end of that, if it doesn't work, I'm up for re-election. Vote me out. I mean, I'm serious here. I mean, for 4 years, we've been trying to do things to get infrastructure. That's my main thing when I ran, is infrastructure. They were looking at the rec center about adding on and doing things. Still yet to happen. The swimming pool, this and that. I just think that our roads and our stormwater, all that needs to be addressed. It hasn't been. We've just been putting a Band-Aid on it. We haven't upped it very much, if at all, in the last 3 years that I've been here. This, I believe, is the only way. And if it's not, I'll apologize now, and I'll vote for it. I'll vote to get rid of it the following year. I'll give you my word on it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Greg. Amy?
I might be reiterating some of the things that other people have said, but I think that this facility is different from other things that we do in this town, because it is supposed to be a dedicated fund that has a special purpose. And that purpose is for stormwater management and quality, water quality. And the council has had as the primary objective stormwater management for 3 years now. And I agree with you that we haven't really made much progress there. And one of the reasons why we haven't made much progress is because when we have appealed to the state of Florida, to Lee County, to other entities who are supposed to assist us in infrastructure projects, the answer has not been positive. So we have a proposal for Spring Creek that I believe is somewhere in the order of $7 to $15 million, that it is on a list for Lee County for their stormwater management projects. But we still have to do matching funds if we ever get that project going. That's just one project out of 15 that was recommended to us by our consultant when we engaged them after Irma. So if we indeed are interested in handling a problem that I think in some ways is existential to Bonita Springs, because we don't want to be known as Bonita Flood, or we don't want to be known as Bonita Bad Water Quality. We want to be known as a beautiful city that attracts people here. I think we need this mechanism by which, we're talking about a funding mechanism. There's another side to this, and that is expenditures. So when we are considering a certain level of these rates, we have to look at what has to be, what kind of infrastructure will help the community. And every year, we're going to have to look at that. We're going to say, are there any projects that we could possibly work on? Is Lee County going to help us on this one project that we think has some promise? Is the state of Florida could come through and help us with Quinn and Dean Street? They're not going to pay for all of it. We're going to have to pay for the rest of it. And another reason why, and I'm going to vote in favor of this because I think it is that important for our community in the future. We're not going to, I agree 100%, $1.5 million is not going to solve our problem. I hate to even think of what numbers might solve our problems. It's like multiple millions. We're going to need help. We can't possibly do it on our own, but we have to do matching funds. So it provides a mechanism by which we could do those matching funds. We can't spend the revenues for anything other than that purpose. We can't spend it to do the roads. We can't spend it to do the rec center. We have to spend it for this purpose. And it's a dedicated fund, and I think that's critical. I also think it's important because as we're doing some modeling within the city, the staff has done a great job. We understand the water flows within the city in a way that I don't think we were aware of. Well, we knew it was happening, but we didn't have it all together up until recently. So we now know where every stormwater management process within every neighborhood, how is it functioning, where is it going, and how is it's connected. And we're uncovering when we did this process, unfortunately, some communities that, one, A, don't even have a stormwater management system, B, have one and don't take care of it, so it's not functioning, and 3, have one, but it's subpar. When it comes to a point where a specific neighborhood realizes that they're not functioning, they have no mechanism, and let's say South Florida Water Management comes to them and says, you're not doing your job. You have a permit and you're violating a permit. it's not the city that has to fix that system, it's the neighborhood. And they have no mechanism by which they can get a fee from their own neighbors to fix that. So this ability for neighborhoods on by their decision to improve their own particular stormwater management system is I think, an asset. And again, unfortunately, what we're facing in regard to expenditures is really intimidating to us on the council, and it should be intimidating to the community. We're trying to do this in a gradual basis so that you know that year after year after year, we're going to be gradually taking care of this problem. We're not going to fix it right now. We're not going to fix it next year. But as long as we're making progress, I think we're doing the right thing. So I'm voting in favor of this. I'm in favor of the different systems for smaller houses and smaller mobile homes. I'm in favor of a crediting system. I live in a community similar to Bonita Bay, where I don't think we go out to the, I think we go out to the bay too, but I still drive on the road, so I personally think that we should be a partner with the rest of the community. So I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Greg, you had something?
I just had a quick question for Tim. When you were talking 1,800 square foot, is that total square foot or livable square foot?
That's total square feet of impervious on the lot.
Okay.
So that would constitute any dwelling plus.
Plus the driveway, whatever. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. And I just think we're all in favor of a stormwater utility up here, and as I've said in the past, I think there's just if this could be 3.5 to 3.5, I think it would be, but obviously that's physically impossible. I don't think this council could be more divided, could not be more united on the fact that we need a stormwater utility, yet could not be more divided with the philosophy of how to pay for it. There's some up here that want to impose a fee and a tax. That's their prerogative. There's some up here that want to pay for it in our rainy day fund, including myself, and not impose another fee or another tax on anybody. We have the money. By holding the millage straight and true to where it was the past 7 years, that generated an additional $800,000 for us this year because property values are going up. I think there's going to be more houses and more businesses in town next year, not less. I think property values will continue to go up, and I think, quite frankly, you guys are taxed enough already. So there's an absolute agreement that we need it and an absolute division in how to pay for it. So with that, is there any other discussion? I'm going to call the question. Mike?
A public comment?
This was advertised as a public hearing, so
There is another public comment.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah.
Mike, go ahead.
I had a question on, the $50 was based on 3 different pools of money. And you'd said that we had a choice of choosing 1, 2, or all 3. Pools A and B are already in our budget. What would the ERU be if we chose just to fund C through the utility?
My recollection is if you're funding solely C, which generated about $500,000 a year, that was approximately $15 per ERU. And I'm going back to a previous presentation we made and recalling it, so we all know what that's worth. But if my memory serves me right, we had categories A, B, and C, and C was, I think, 15 of the $50.
So is that something that could still be chosen today? Because, like I said, A and B is already in our budget. We're already paying for that. So if we collected the full 50, then that's excess money this year.
As we have said time and time again, it was our role to bring the tools to you. How you choose to use them is entirely your prerogative.
And can I just say one more thing?
Of course, absolutely.
Thank you. Greg, you said that if somebody walked in the door and said $3 million for that piece of property. You didn't identify property. You threw out a hypothetical.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's been a long day.
Yes.
How can someone walk in when we haven't put a price on it?
Well, that's kind of.
So why don't we do something instead of just solving the problem by taxes, and put a price on it and put out the RFP? If the RFPs are taking 3 years to get out, we'll then say we need to do another study and figure out what's really needed downtown. So we need to stop pushing it down the road and let people build. I mean, I believe that if we said X is Y, and we would have people saying, I'll buy it.
I don't disagree with you, and I agree with you 110%, but if this was January, I'd agree with you, and I'd say let's hold off. But this is September, and this needs to be done now, because it's our budget time. If this was back in January, I'd pump the brakes and say, let's hold off on Stantec, gave us the presentation, but now we're in September, and we've got to do something. That's the time that we do taxes. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I feel.
No,
about
and
it.
for the good of the order, I've made it, we're gonna, at our next city council meeting,
Yes.
have another presentation on downtown, and then I've made it very clear, and I'm gonna make it very public to Arlene. Following that presentation, I will be green sheeting, putting up an RFP for our properties downtown. And it will be the first meeting in October.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. Next year, I know I keep pushing off a year, but if we sell it next year and we're
not pushing anything off.
Well, no,
anymore.
and when we get a buyer and we get this money in there, then by all means, we, put the ERUs down to zero, nobody gets a fee next year, and we'll fund it through ad valorem. It's just, we didn't do it, at least in my opinion, the right way this year, and we're in the 11th hour, and, we're in, September. We still got 2 more months of hurricane season. We've seen Dorian. It scared everybody, including us. So, I mean, we had a special meeting here and declared a state of emergency. So I just think January, you're exactly right, Laura. I'd support it 110%. And like the mayor's saying, tomorrow, our next meeting, more than happy to do it. And like I said, I'll give you my promise right now. I'll vote to take it down next year if we dedicate. And again, I'm going to be very clear about this. The only way I vote against it in the future is if it is directly dedicated to stormwater management. It can't be just sitting in there as the rainy day fund and, if we get around to it. No, it's got to be dedicated. So unless, God forbid, another Irma happens, that's the only way we take it out of that dedicated line item. That is the only way, is in a state of emergency.
Just an observation, which is, because I don't think.
Peter and then Laura.
Yeah, because I don't think, I guess we're going to have a green sheet about that, and we can talk about that. But whatever that money is, it's $1 million, $3 million, and we're not negotiating here with the property, right? This is $17 million over 10 years, all right? This is $17 million over 10 years. And that puts us in a position gradually to work our way through and do what the people expect us to do, which is, as Amy put it, not have this be the city that floods. So it may or may not make sense to do a quick sale or a delayed sale, or however you want to discuss it with bamboo, but that ain't solving a $17 million or a $50 million problem.
Well,
that's one person's opinion. Laura?
That's all it is.
And but we seem to talk about, and we're going to get assistance from the county or from the government or some grant, but then when we want to say $3 million's not enough, we don't mention that it's 17 million is going to be most likely matching funds, but not 17 million. And then it'll never go away because it's stormwater management and water quality. Okay, so if anything, it has to go up because we don't want to be known as a city of floods, and we don't want to be known as a city that stinks, and we can get diseases from and scare people away. So it'll never go away, and it needs to be addressed. But we have the money to do it in the budget as is. So,
Mike, did you have something, or Amy? Because then I was going to open it up for public comment.
I do think that, that we can have more discussions about this in the future after, we either pass this or don't pass it. Because the expenditure side is as important as the revenue side. And if we come up with a project next year that we find we might be getting support from, that let's say is $5 million or something, at that time we can make a decision about how much of that $5 million is going to come from the user fee, how much we want to take out of the operating budget, how much we're going to maybe borrow. You can make that funding decision every single year, which is matched to any potential projects that's there. The one problem I see about selling assets is that it's a one-time event. And if this were a one-time project, that we could take care of it with whatever we charge people, that's different. But I don't see it as a one-time event in regard to the expenditures that are necessary in order to work on the problem, not even fix the problem, just work on the problem. So after we do our project this year, then we got to do our project next year and the year after that. So once we sell the assets, it's over. So I think that's somewhat of a separate decision that we can talk about at our meeting next week, or is it next week or next month?
Next week.
You know, I still think it's the same problem, you know, and I don't see the even if we have $1.5 million in the operating budget, it doesn't answer the problem. You know, even if we could do it this year, that's not, we need a reliable source of funding. That's what's the whole point of this.
Yep. Mike?
If this passes tonight, I would just hope that it passes at the lower level for just doing the funding, the extra funding that we're looking for, and not all the funding that we already have in place in our budget. Because now it's just like double dipping, basically.
Triple or quadruple, right? I mean, depending on how you want to look at it, but at least double dipping, Mike. We're going to open it up now for public comment. So please come forward if you'd like to speak. Thanks so much. Welcome, Ron.
Thanks, Mayor. You know, I haven't heard, if there's $1 million...
Please, folks, let's keep the noise down, please. Thank you, folks. You can talk out in the lobby if you need to talk. Thank you.
All right, I haven't heard, or did I hear that there's money already in the budget to cover $1 million or $1.5 million of what you folks are looking for? To me, it's absolutely ridiculous that you would move forward to vote for implementing this fee at this point and not use what you've got in the budget.
Ron, I apologize. Folks, we're going to need silence or we're not going to continue. Please go out in the lobby to talk. Thank you. Yes, Ron.
Give me a few extra, please.
Yes.
Why would you want to commit when you have the money in the bank to do that? Now, I asked questions the first time I was up here, and I didn't get any answers. I've been referred to individuals to speak to them privately, I guess. I would like the information brought to the public. For example, how much have we paid Stantec to date for delivering something that I believe the council could have moved forward and gotten from the county? Had you needed to twist arms, then it certainly would have been worthwhile. How much is really on the table? Now, Spring Creek, for example, I've heard about utility problems in the past. Thank you. And the movement of water and something that must be done. The city, no doubt about it. But Spring Creek was to have cost about $300,000 just to dredge it. Original cost attached to it. Ended up costing us $1 million. All right. Anything in government, local, state, or otherwise, is very likely to get out of hand. So when someone says 17 million, I think it's less than the tip of the iceberg. I don't know why you folks don't continue to pursue South Florida water management. Everyone seemed delighted with the fact that the old board had been displaced. They were fired essentially by the governor. You have young members on that board of directors, some of them very, very local. One in particular at Sanibel Island, who appreciates the environment, et cetera, and knows money forward, backwards, and upside down. These are opportunities. You folks, and there's no way that you're going to accomplish. The councilman from downtown, one of them said that, we're still in hurricane season. Are you implying that we're going to accomplish the task at hand of moving water before the end of October or November? That's ridiculous. You guys could afford to wait another year because you've got money in the bank again to do what needs to be done. And also, what portion of the $1.7 million is going towards administration and et cetera? And another point that I think has not been made is why haven't we forgotten about the possibility of engaging establishing a new utility? We have a public works department. If need be, hire the necessary personnel there that has the engineering expertise and background to do the job or oversee the job that you are willing to engage a utility, in quotes, to do. I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Other members of the public? Greetings, how are you? Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Robert Allen. I'm the president of the Colony of Morton Grove. Morton Grove is 3 separate associations, and there's 268 units in there. We have one large retaining pond and a smaller one. When the flood came before Irma, we had 1 retaining pond. And then when Irma came, we had water out to East Terry Street. We had sheet flow after that, and it came also from the property next to us, which was the old trailer park and the church properties. Fortunately, we were able to find a contractor to come in and help us remove water, because the water was reaching up to the doorsteps of people's units, and some in the garages. That cost us $26,000. If we did not do that, guaranteed all bottom floor units would have been flooded. Councilman Forbes mentioned something about the state mandate that we needed to keep the nitrogen level low in the Imperial River. We're doing everybody else's work because they're all coming down from the north. In 2017, when Carl was the city manager, he put on a list of items he wanted to get support from the Tallahassee, and one of them was matching funds of that 1.7 or 1.5 that we have to spend to lower the nitrogen level in the river. He wanted them to put up $1 million, and we would put up 500. Never came back. So we continue to do that, and we've been doing it for a long time. So that's one expenditure that we know is going to go up. Matt Feeney outlined last meeting that we have $28 million in stormwater-related projects to come forth in the next 10 years. Each year that we wait on any of those is going to go up. So it's not going to be $28 million. Now, we know that in what we experienced with building the high school. We got burnt on that by not moving forward. There was a delay. I'd also like to know where the money is going to go for the stormwater assessment. As I see it, we've got a couple of choices here. People like to say that you can go into the fund, the city budget, and there's money there. Maybe there is money there today. But what about next year? What's going to happen between now and then? We don't know. Maybe there's money this year, but next year, the next year, who knows? This will give us some money that we can count on. So the choices. You can vote yes, or you can vote no and get a bigger vote. So I'm for it. I think it's the way to go. You have my support.
Thank you, sir.
Hello again.
Hello again, how are you?
I'm okay. Can I ask questions now, or still just speaking?
It's public comment, ma'am.
Okay, because I don't know what district I'm in, so when someone can tell me that, I'd be happy to know that. The other thing is the October meeting, and I forgot what else I want. Oh, the dedicated account. I think that if you're going to dedicate an account to just this water management, it should be accessible to the public, where it's going. You should be able to go in just like your own bank account and say, okay, they just sent a check for $10,000 to whoever. Or more money came in on the tax account. But I'm still also for everybody pays, not just certain people. You know, I think it should be, this is my first meeting, so I don't know everything yet. But I like the idea that everybody pays the same percentage. So if you have a $200,000 house or a $20 million house, the percentage is the same for your home, whatever that may be. And as Greg so eloquently put, he's been on this board for 3 years or 4 years, and still nothing has happened. So what about that? I mean, if we pay this, is something gonna happen? And if nothing happens, do we get our money back? And that's all I can think of right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bill Morris. I'm the district engineer for the San Carlos Estates Water Control District. For those of you who aren't familiar with our district, we are a 298 Florida statute created taxing district here in Bonita Springs, and was created in 1969. And as such, we are a MPDES MS4 co-permittee with the city and with the county, and understand the concerns and the problems that come with being a part of that program that you are trying to address through this utility. We understand that and do not object to the basis for the stormwater utility. We understand that projects have to be undertaken and that the city has a responsibility to do those. We do, however, object, as some of my predecessors up here did, to the duplication of fees for those responsibilities. Our district primary responsibility is to the stormwater management for the properties that are within the 1,100 acres that comprise San Carlos Estates. And we feel very strongly that consideration needs to be equitable in the amount of resources and expenditures that are made towards that purpose. And to that end, from what we can tell, the basis for the credit levels does not seem to reconcile with the amount of effort that is expended by San Carlos Estates in the way that we in our responsibilities towards stormwater management. And we're asked that in your consideration of the adoption of this ordinance that you consider the water control district, of which I believe we are the only one in the city, along with the CDDs and some of the other special districts that are tasked with meeting the same standards as the city, and how they are evaluated in this particular tax. And we appreciate your consideration in that regard. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome, John. How are you?
Another night in paradise. John Payne, Bonita Springs Downtown Alliance, and CGT Kayaks. There's just a couple of things I'd like to mention. Once a tax is in place, it's hard to get rid of it, Greg. I realize you say you vote against it, but I've never seen the taxes repealed once they get put in place. As far as selling assets and them being only a one-time influx to a city, that's not true. Once that property is sold, then it's on our tax base. It's getting taxed every year, and then there's sales tax coming in from the businesses that are generating there. So it's not a one-time thing. It's a regular thing. It's a regular income, and it's the reason we need to sell these properties. And as far as the river being impaired, yes, we have bacteria in the river, Imperial River. We also have thousands of bats that live under the Matheson Bridge that contribute to that bacteria. So I wouldn't necessarily be freaking out that it's human. As a matter of fact, 90% of the city's on public sewer. So the water we're getting, the bacteria we're getting is from other sources. The other thing, we spent $20 million to redirect stormwater from downtown. Now you have this beautiful downtown, a library. We need to get a form-based code in place. Make that happen. We'll sell the property. You don't need an RFP if you got the form-based code in place. You put it up for sale and sell it. Then there's money to go in for stormwater. We don't need to impose a tax this year. We could dedicate money this year and stipulate that the property be sold and the money goes to the stormwater fund next year. We don't have to impose a tax on people. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Greetings. How are you, sir?
Sorry I have to speak again, but I still have just a few things I have to say. Are we gamblers? Are we willing to gamble with our city that we won't have another 100-year rain event? there are no more 100-year rain events. These storms now are coming on a regular basis. We do not have the time to sit back and do these petty little projects. I've seen a huge improvement in stormwater management in the town of Bonita since I've been here. I saw Southern Pines under 3 feet of water. I saw East Terry Street under 2 feet of water when I first came here. I saw fish swimming on East Terry Street. So we have made improvements, but they've been very slow. Why have they been slow? Because we haven't had the money. We haven't been to town until not too many years ago. But listen, we do not need to gamble with our town. These storms are coming more regular, and they're coming slower, and they're dumping more rain. Now, why are they dumping more rain? Because there's more water in the atmosphere. It's got to go somewhere. Dorian sat over the Bahamas for 24 hours dumping rain. It decimated the whole place. It could have very easily came across us if it wouldn't have been for the high. In the southeast, they held it up. But every time we sit and argue back and forth and consider this, consider that, we're losing time. And time is of the essence with this. If we don't do something now, if we go through another storm like Irma or Dorian, we're going to wish we did. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's very true. And some people believe in global warming, and some people doesn't believe in global warming. Okay, that's your business. But what I'm saying is, we don't have the time. We may have some money, but will that correct the problem? I don't think so. It's going to take a lot of money over a long period of time to correct our problem. Okay, and also, this problem with the Imperial River and Cedar Creek with the oxygen levels in the waters. Our bodies of water in Bonita flow very slowly. Rivers and creeks that flow slowly have low oxygen content. It takes the water to be stirred up for it to take on oxygen. Also, these communities that have their own stormwater management systems sometimes have to dump into our creeks and rivers. Those ponds will only hold so much water and it has to be discharged. It's got to go somewhere. So even though they may get a credit, it's still going to wind up where it's going to be. If we get a storm like Irma or Dorian, and I hate to think we're going to ever have any more, but we don't know that. We can't sit here and gamble on the lives of our town. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. I'm Grant Lundberg, and I'd like to introduce the mayor, councilman, and all the city workers here. I go back when I came to this city to visit my sister in Bonita Bay in 1986. And then I became a resident down here in 1992. And all of a sudden, when we got a mayor, Paul Pass, and he organized the city council that everybody elected. And I went on a committee at that time to be a volunteer for the city of Bonita Springs Storm and Sewer Drain Committee. And we were dealing at the time on cockle shell coming out of Estero Estates before Estero Estates started putting up the gates down on that end. And if some of you probably remember, we went over to the Elks Club with the San Carlos, how they voted us out of there. The fire department, the paramedics, we could not use their roads to get access to get on the Imperial Parkway, which you can see it today. If you go down, you see nothing but roundabouts all the way where Estero Estates own. And yet, we continued on. We improved in our sewers. We improved in our runoff. We did a lot of work. The city used people, the workers that we had here all the years are there. And I just want to go back, not putting the blame on used people, but I got to turn to the public and say, hey, how many times did you come down here and want to play golf? Oh, you got up to the tee box, boom, you put a ball in the lake. What did you do? $4.95, you put another one. Boom, you put it in the lake. Then you come down, the golf course is closed. Why? Because we got too much water. But you'll still buy golf balls. Same way the guy goes fishing. wants to go out fishing. He goes and buys bait, everything else. And what does he do? He can't go because we're flooded out. But Eddie's willing to spend for minnows, like the guy is for golf balls. Same way, when I was a bartender, people come in from having a bad game, bad fishing, bad day at work, give me a cocktail. They didn't care what they paid, because they woke up with a headache the next day. And believe me, you don't deserve to have the headache I do.
Thank you, Grant. Welcome. Yes,
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Walter McCarthy again from Bayside Improvement Community Development District. I was pleased to see that you have some kind of a credit program anticipated. That's a good news. I think it needs more thought. I can tell you Bayside is the largest community development district in Lee County, measured by the number of registered voters in the district. So we have a pretty good economy of scale. And as I said, we have been doing our duty for all the years that the CDD has been in place. Things like one of the examples that for giving credit is maintenance of your stormwater catch basin program. I can tell you that in Bayside, that costs us almost $25 a constituent a year. So a $25 credit is only the tip of the iceberg. As I said, we spend about $150 to $175 a constituent on surface water management issues. So I think that you've got a good beginning, but I think a little bit more thought into it and a recognition that this is an increment, as the San Carlos District individual said, that this is put on top of our budgets. We're already doing what we're supposed to do, and I'm elected to watch out for the interest of my constituents just as you are, and so I'm asking you that you just reconsider it and try to come up with something that is probably between where you are and not paying anything, which is where I'd really like to be. Thank you very much.
Good evening again. I think I forgot to tell my name last time. I'm Dwight Essman. I live off Paradise Road. Very brief. The main thing that I think I hope you will all consider is this is the dedicated funding source that can only be used for stormwater management, not the same way with ad valorem taxes, and it will help us get grants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, welcome.
The only thing I have to say, my name is Ian Wirtz, and the only thing I have to say is that we had called the city on people that have disabilities or don't make the money that other people do, and we had asked the city tax office, now I don't know if this matters, but they said that they will not take any discounts or anything for people with that. And that was something that I wondered if that would be cut and dry for people that don't make what they're supposed to, or if they're on disability, like you had said, one of you about a lady neighbor or something on Wednesday, that she didn't have money to pay even her taxes. And that was something else I wondered if they were going to give some like we do get some off our taxes a little bit for certain things. And I was told that it would be cut and dry. And that was something. So if you do put it through and you check on mobile homes and like $1 million homes and you price it right, you know, if we need it, we need it. That's all there's to it, and that's all I have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Item C is now council action on implementation of a stormwater assessment fee.
And you've got a motion and a second on it.
And we've got a motion and a second. Do we have the details worked out on, because it was revised?
Yes, unless there's been any change as a result of the additional public comment.
Okay, council, it's been a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion? No. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Nay.
Mayor Simmons?
No.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
No.
Councilman Forbes? Passes 4-3.
He said aye.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6, which is an overview of the tentative millage. Go ahead, Pete, if you need to. We're going to keep rolling here. Overview of the tentative millage and budget public hearing, and this is green sheet 1909-271. Hi, Ann, how are you?
Good evening, Ann Wright, Finance Director. I would like to read into the record green sheet 19-09-271 because it contains information that is required by statute to be stated during this hearing. This meeting is a public hearing on the tentative millage rate and the tentative budget for the City of Bonita Springs for fiscal year 2019-2020. The statutes require that this public hearing be preceded by notice of the hearing. Trim notices were mailed in August notifying property owners of the hearing date. Notice of this hearing was published in the news press on September 2nd, 2019. The statutes require that we publicly read the following. The proposed millage is .8173 mils per thousand of taxable value compared to the rollback rate of .7924 mils per thousand of taxable value. The proposed millage is a 3.14% increase from the rollback rate. This proposed millage is established to pay for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budgeted expenditures.
Great, thank you, Ann. Council, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's been a motion to approve the millage rate as is, consistent, I guess, with the past 7 years now of .8172. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I just got a quick
Greg,
question.
yeah.
Well, just because Mike brought it up, that 2/3 of the funding mechanism for this tax or for this fee is in the budget. Is that a true statement?
Sorry,
Yeah, of the 1 point, whatever this is gonna, the 1.5 that this is gonna generate, is it 1.5 now since we made a change? Well, it's 1.5 because we made the changes to do the second one. I believe it's 1.5 and it's, I don't know, we can scroll that back. Anyway, to Mike and the mayor's benefit, I mean, if we want to pull it out, now would be the time to do it.
Well, my problem with that is then it really turns this into a regressive tax. Because as soon as you reduce the millage rate, the people in the very expensive houses that pay high taxes, they get a huge reduction in what they're paying, where the person that now is paying an extra $50 in their small house, they may get like $1 or $2 reduction.
I'm just saying.
So
we
it's
sit here
highly
and tout
regressive
about-
going it that
well,
way, so.
We sit here and tout about how we can't take our millage down. Here's our chance. You've made the point that 2/3 of this already in there, same money coming in for the stormwater assessment.
Well, that's why I think we should have reduced the stormwater assessment.
So,
Okay, council, there's been a motion to approve the millage rate, and the second is there further discussion?
will this, one more,
.8172?
one more just question. Will this help us, Matt?
8173.
So will this help us expedite or do more projects faster now that we have 2 sets of funding sources for stormwater management?
It'll provide more money. It'll provide more money for stormwater.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Okay, and if you're ready, I'm going to read the entire resolution as apparently has been the practice previously. A resolution of the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, adopting the tentative levying of ad valorem taxes for the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, for fiscal year 2019-2020, establishing the date, time, and place for a final hearing to adopt the final ad valorem taxes for fiscal year 2019-2020, and providing an effective date. Whereas the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, on September 9th adopted fiscal year 2019-2020 tentative millage rate, or you're about to, following a public hearing as required by Florida statutes 200.065, and whereas the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, held a public hearing as required by Florida statute 200.065, and whereas the gross taxable value operating purposes not exempt from taxation within the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, has been certified by the Lee County property appraiser to the City of Bonita Springs as $11,293,475,209. How can I help? You could finish the rest. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, Section 1, for the fiscal year 2019-2020 tentative ad valorem operating millage rate calendar year 2019 is hereby adopted at .8173 mils, and the levy of annual tax for said year is tentatively made. The tentative operating millage is greater than the rolled back rate of .9724 mils by 3.14%.
That was .7924.
0.7924 mils, I apologize, by 3.14%. Section 2, a public meeting and public hearing will be held on September 19th, 2019 at 5:05 p.m. at the Bonita Springs Council Chambers, City Hall, 9101 Bonita Beach Road, Bonita Springs, Florida, to consider and adopt the final millage rate for fiscal year 2019-2020. Section 3, effective date, the resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. Okay, and now you have, you can open it up for any public comments.
Okay, public comment, members of the public that would like to speak on the millage rate, please come forward at this time.
We're good.
You're all set? Okay.
Warm out.
Okay, council, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba? Aye, I'm sorry.
Okay, we are going to now go to item 9. Item 8, announcement of the percentage, if any, but the recalculated. We've kind of done that, right? We
Right.
did those together. I apologize. But is there anything else that needs to be said on that, Ian, or anything?
No, that needed to be on the agenda in the event that there was a change in the millage.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so, but item 9 was actually the resolution
I just
that was just
Yeah.
read and take
Perfect.
action taken. And now we're at 10.
Okay, moving down to 10, a resolution of the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 and providing an effective date. This is green sheet number 1909-274 or 1909-276. Take your pick.
Which one do we want?
Yeah, which one do you want, Derek?
It's 19-09-276.
Okay.
Because that one does include the stormwater fund. And it does show, the resolutions show expenditures. So the expenditure number is $1,716,555, which is the number in the resolution that you did approve with the implementation of the fee.
Okay, and if you're ready, I'll go through.
We're ready.
All right. Reading the remainder of the resolution that the mayor got a good start on me.
Oops, what's that?
That number will change though, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that
It'll go
number
down.
needs to change.
The budget that you'll see will say that, but the actual amount then will go down.
And whereas the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, held a public hearing as required by Florida Statute 200.065, and whereas the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, set forth the appropriations and revenue estimate for the budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, including expenditures as follows. Appropriated expenditures in the amount of $14,646,489, and appropriated revenues of reserves, I apologize. $14,221,262 for a total revenue fund of $28,287,751. Special revenue funds, gas tax fund appropriate expenditures in the amount of $1,090,495. Gas tax fund appropriate reserves of $1,522,904. Impact fee funds appropriate expenditures, none. Impact fee fund appropriate reserves, $4,127,832. Grant fund appropriated expenditures, $80,000. Downtown area revenue sharing expenditures, none. Downtown area revenue sharing appropriated reserves, $130,539. Building fee fund appropriated expenditures, $2,733,911. Stormwater Fund appropriated expenditures, $1,716,555. Total special revenue funds, $11,402,236. Debt service funds appropriated expenditures in the amount of $3,633,325. And capital projects funds appropriated expenditures in the amount of $28,691,000 and $977. Total appropriate expenditures and reserves, $72,595,289. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bonita Springs, Lee County, Florida, that Section 1, the fiscal year 2019-2020 tentative budget is hereby adopted. Section 2, the effective date of this resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. And this is also a public hearing.
Okay. Are there members of the public that would like to speak on this? Council, what's your pleasure?
I'll move.
A motion to approve and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Corumba? Aye. Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Okay, anything else, Derek or Ian?
I have nothing else.
Okay. We're going to public comment. Members of the public that would like to speak at this time, please come forward. All right, seeing none, motion to adjourn? We are adjourned, everybody. Thank you very much.